Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Real Talks One podcast. Today, we have a very interesting discussion. I was reading a few comments and I have seen it across my career as well. There is a raging debate between specialization and generalization. And oftentimes, you would hear that people would advise that specialize in certain area. You can really go earn very high salary, and once you become a specialist, then sky is the limit. I would like to provide perspectives on both being a generalist as well as specialist, and possibly introduce certain concepts which probably you already know, or maybe you can jog them if you don't know them as well. So specialization, as you would see people pursue, like after BTech they would do MTech, and then sometimes they'll even pursue a PhD, where they'll go deep into nuts and bolts of, let's say, machine learning or distributed computing or security, privacy, bunch of different areas, right? uh, so that's one approach, and they may end up becoming an academician and specialize in various different databases, high performance computing, and different areas. Even in work and career, you will see that some people would focus on high frequency trading, some people will be focused on search systems, some will be focused on advertising systems, some will solely focus on back end systems, some would focus on front end systems, some would be focused on cloud operations and things along those lines, right? And they continue to go in depth in those areas and continue to remain there. uh, in one sense, if those skills are in high demand, you will always find a job, and you can always find people who require those kind of skills, and you can continue to keep specializing in them and apply them, right? And that has been the traditional route, that you pick up a specific trade, gain some experience in that, and you continuously keep working in those areas, so that those skills become like a second habit to you. So if you have built a lot of back-end systems and you continue to do that, you also pick up the latest and the greatest technologies within that language and continue to specialize and keep building on your skill. This has worked very well thus far, and a lot of people continue to operate in that fashion. However, when you ask them that, okay, not only the back end, I would also like for you to start building some data products for me, or also put together like a front end for me as well, these people start kind of shivering. Sometimes this also happens that people specialize extremely in, let's say, Python or Java or C++, and the moment you tell them to pick up another language, again they start shivering because they say, oh, I don't know this, etc. What you will realize is that if the demand in a specific skill set continues to remain high, you can survive very well. Maybe you will excel there as well. However, if the market shifts, the environment shifts, and now your skill set in which you specialized is no longer in high demand, you would have to reskill or upskill yourself and pick up new skills. So would that would it have been better that all along, not only did you specialize in the areas of your interest, but also had a broader perspective of other related areas or related skills as well? So, for instance, while you were an expert in, let's say, back-end engineering, you also picked up like middlewares and front end. Even if you were not an expert, but you had enough working knowledge that you could put together a complete solution or a product which has front end, middleware, back end databases, and things like that, right? So, if I were the hiring manager and had to hire a particular person, of course, if it is a back end heavy job, I would like to have like a person who really is an expert in back end. But if I am constrained in resources, I do not have enough funding, I do want to bring in a person who not only can take care of the back end, but can also take care of the front end as well as the middleware and any kind of data wrangling that is required as well. Whom would you think I would be hiring? Like, let's say if you are joining a startup which do not has many resources or multiple openings, they can only hire one or two people. They'll rather hire a person who can do multiple things and maybe have expertise in one or two areas, right? uh, in today's day and age, when we have generative AI and people, more and more people and enterprises are using co-pilots and agents and assistants to basically solve for many of the work that they are doing, it becomes even more important that you bring in people who are specialists for sure in more than two domains, right? Not so I think gone are the days when you only had a person who basically specializes just in one specific area. Let's say there is a person who is an expert in security, okay. uh, I mean, if this company where you are working has a role of like chief security officer or CISO as they call it, and that kind of a pedigree, probably you can go there, reach to the top level. If the top level is empty or the person at the top level is no longer there and moves on, you can pick up that role, but the growth in that limited narrow field would be very very limited. So generally, larger organizations such as Cisco, Juniper, Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, etc., they will all have this security function, and that would be pretty good, sizable function where you will have a bunch of people. But this security function would not be as big as, let's say, the other software systems that they would have, or other software teams that they would have. So because of its specialization, the opportunities will also be very limited until the people within this organization move out. There will be no new opportunities for new people to come and kind of focus in that. And security, I'm using this as a word because while there are opportunity of security in multiple different companies, but there are not as many opportunities as compared to, let's say, software engineers or a general purpose software development or AI/ML and things along those lines, right? So however, if a person is expert in security protocols and things like that, but can also build backend systems or maybe also understands data and machine learning, etc., then this person becomes very powerful, because not only can they work upon SOX compliance, security, and encryption, decryption protocols, etc., but they can actually write general purpose software as well. So having multi-skilled, polyglot kind of a person really pays well. So what I'm trying to say here is that if you are in some research institution, let's say NASA or some research lab, where your whole focus is to expand the given field, whether it is in machine learning or maybe in generative AI, etc., if you happen to be in those organizations which really pays for having that kind of a specialization, and if it remains in demand, then yes, that specialization will pay you much more than, let's say, a general purpose software engineer. So today, anyone who has a generative AI like experience, who do fundamental research in generative AI, especially expanding GPTs, or working on new protocols, or working on new paradigms of LLMs and coming out with those core foundational models and agent frameworks and things like that, are being paid very heavily because those skills are in extremely high demand. And just by having general purpose software engineering, you can't actually build these LLMs or agents and things like that, right? You do need specialized knowledge and experience in those areas. So for now, in these areas, having that specialization is paying very high. Like, for a lot of people already probably know that OpenAI pays these people on an average like double what a big tech would pay. So for instance, a senior engineer in OpenAI would probably make close to 1 million, while they would be making close to 5 to 600K in Meta or Google, right? So in this case, of course, this is paying. But let's assume this person not only has this the generative AI skill set, but also knows how to write a general purpose software. Wouldn't this person be more valuable, right? And at least, let's say tomorrow generative AI completely pops, right? Then there is no more funding for those areas. So even though you have skill set in that area, you can't apply it because there is no demand for that skill set actually. But generic software engineering is still available, people still require that. So even if it doesn't pay you like $1 million there, it will still pay you like close to 300 400K, because generic software engineering is still kind of valued. So I'd like to define a term, we call it as pie shaped skill. Back in the day, people used to call T shaped skill. So a T-shaped skill used to be that you are a domain expert in one specific area. So for instance, I take an example of machine learning, that I'm an expert in machine learning, but then I also have knowledge of related areas such as data engineering, back-end engineering, full stack development, things along those lines, right? So I have multiple knowledge of multiple areas, but my expertise is primarily in machine learning, right? So you would like require those kind of people. So basically they have depth in machine learning and width in like data engineering and back-end engineering and full stack engineering and things like that. So it's kind of a T-shaped, right? So I came out with this further, rather than having T-shaped, what if it is pie-shaped? So now the vertical bar is like much more broader. It's no longer just very thin, just one skill, but basically you are expert in multiple, more than two skills. So let's say in addition to machine learning, you are also an expert in data engineering, and you're also expert in, let's say, security engineering, right? And then on the broad spectrum, you also understand e-commerce, so you understand search and advertising systems, you understand distributed computing and cloud computing and things along those lines, right? So your expertise is in more than two areas, meaning you have multiple specializations, but then you have broader understanding of multiple different domains where these specializations or related areas can also be employed. These set of people are in very very high demand because they can architect new systems, they can extrapose some of the knowledge from one domain to another domain, and that is the need of the hour actually. As and more like this generative AI becomes much more popular, and you have a lot of tools, agents, and bots that are available for your usage, these kind of skills will basically differentiate you from the other people who are only specialized in a single given area, and they're not able to extrapolate their skill sets to other areas. So I think from my perspective, a long story short is that having a pie-shaped skill, or at least a T-shaped skill, is much better than just a specialization in one given area, except for the fact if your specialization is the most sought after skill, most high demand skill, and you can continue to focus in there. And generally it happens in the cases of research, like let's say if you are like a doctor or an oncologist, so you specialize in a cancer, and within that also you can specialize in, let's say, liver cancer, lung cancer, or breast cancer and things along those lines, right? Those are also specializations. And since a lot of people continue to keep getting those kind of ailments, you will continue to have very high demand. But what if there is a doctor who not only specializes in oncology, which is their core specialization, but within oncology they have multiple focus areas like breast cancer, liver cancer, brain cancer, etc. This doctor would be much more valuable than one that only focuses on brain cancer or only focuses on breast cancer, because they would get to hear, see, because again these are all bodily functions, right? And one component or one organ in the body impacts other organ, and they are interconnected. So it's very important to know how a one component or organ can impact the other organs, and how the interplay between them actually kind of works. Similarly, in your career, whether it is software or management consulting career and things along those lines as well, knowing about broader different areas, domains, whether it is e-commerce or fintech, like logistics, supply chain, uh, the more you know, the better it is. But I'm not suggesting that you have to be jack of all trades and master of none. What I'm actually suggesting is you have to be a jack of few trades, and so you have to be jack of many trades, but have to be master of some. That is very much required actually to be successful and move forward in your life. So traditionally, when people used to claim that generalists are not required, they are no good, I'll also give an example that in any organization, right? So as long as you are specialist and all, there is a specific ceiling to which level you can basically rise. Sooner or later you will see, as you start gaining experience, as you start being in this specific role for a long period of time, companies would expect that you start mentoring others, you start taking leadership roles, become kind of manager and things like that. So at very senior levels, even if you are an IC, expectation is that you should be able to influence others, you should be able to mentor others, etc. So you start taking on more kind of management responsibilities, even if your title is no longer a manager. And in many organizations which are not like big tech, etc., there is a ceiling to which an individual contributor can rise. Mostly those ceilings are at the manager or senior manager level, or maybe at a director level, and you get basically stuck there. But if you are a manager, and then the sky is the limit, you could basically become, of course, a director, senior director, VP, senior VP, CTO, whatnot, right? The growth path is there. So in companies such as Microsoft, Amazon, Google, etc., even at the individual contributor ladder, also you have path to all those levels as well. So you could technically become a like a fellow, which is more like a VP level, or distinguished engineer, which is more like a director, senior director, VP level, or principal engineer in many companies is like a manager, senior manager, or director level. But you would see there are very few people who have those kind of individual contributor titles, such as senior principal engineers, distinguished engineers, and fellow. But you would have many more people who are titled as VP or director or senior director, right? That itself should give you an example of how many opportunities at an individual contributor level are there at that level, right? So that should give you an indication. Second of all, like in broader companies such as Google or Microsoft or Amazon, maybe like a fellow engineer or distinguished engineer who specializes in, let's say, distributed computing or a database technology, or for instance, supply chain, right? These companies can still afford to keep a specialist in that role. But in other companies who may not have enough work, enough business impact for that kind of a role, they would always expect like a manager who can not only focus on supply chain management, but also on inventory management, demand forecasting, can focus on search and advertising, marketing technology, and bunch of other areas. And as a manager, you're expected to manage multiple domains, even if you don't have experience in those domains, right? So technically, your growth, your compensation will be tied to your ability to manage much more complex things, even if you do not have experience in those areas. That invariably will basically differentiate you from other people that are out there who are just specialized in one or two given areas, and uh, throughout their life, that's those are the experience that they have. So if you see, historically, people from consulting backgrounds tend to like focus on multiple different areas. So those people generally tend to become like CFOs or COOs or even CEOs, right? And CEO, as you think, manages the entire company, right? All your product, engineering, marketing, sales, finance, legal, everyone basically at the end reports into the CEO. So it's very difficult for CEO to know all these different domains, but they're very good in administration, probably they're good in sales, and they're good in like speaking and being the face of the company. So this already tells you it's very rare that a person who is a specialist will become the CEO or the one that basically manages the entire show. So that should basically summarize it for everyone. In my particular case, I also started out as a software engineer, mostly in the telecommunication networking field, focusing on routing protocols, networking protocols, writing embedded software in C, C++ primarily. And then I moved on to pick up like enterprise software, mainly building business support systems, operation support systems, such as activation system, provisioning system, inventory management, supply chain management, CRM systems, and things like that. Then I moved on to build search and advertising products, and I moved into e-commerce. And then, if you see, I actually kept on picking up one domain after another, transitioning into completely new industries, and was able to extrapolate some of my learning from the past in these new areas. Since very starting, I was very good in communication. So not only would I understand the software and the architecture and systems, but I would also understand the business background behind it and was able to articulate them to my team members, as well as was very good at talking with customers and business leaders. So naturally, around almost a time when I was at Yahoo, I would say, which is technically, I would say 2009 time frame or so, I made a move into product management. So not only did I have engineering, but now I had product management responsibility as well, and I did that with flying colors actually. And since then till date today, it's almost been like, I would say, 15 plus years now. I have been managing product engineering and data functions. So whenever I talk with people, I'm able to wear the hat of a product manager. If I'm talking to business and product people, I'm able to wear a hat of an engineering manager when I'm talking to engineers. And I'm able to wear a hat of a machine learning scientist and a data engineer when I'm talking to data scientists or things like that. So I think I have been very fortunate and lucky that I have been at the forefront of innovation and worked for such kind of companies where I got this opportunity to explore these kind of trades. And my management was such that they basically focused on having that multidisciplinary approach, that you have to manage both the product and the engineering teams, including any kind of program management, data, QA, etc. And this helped shape my career, that I'm able to talk through. So you might have seen some of my mentorship sessions. So even though my title is not like a product manager per se, but since I have managed product managers, etc., I am able to tell exactly what a product definition is, how product requirements are done, how to define OKRs, what key business matrices are there. And that's what mentorship I'm actually giving to some of the students. So you can see there are about three mentorship sessions that I have done for freshers, mostly from IIT Delhi, who are looking into getting into product management within the e-commerce, supply chain, or fintech companies back in India. And all the questions are related around product management. Even though I'm mostly titled as a CTO, so even the title actually is, I think it should be CPTO, Chief Product and Technology Officer. That's what describes me the best, I would say, right? So I would just say that if you get an opportunity, and if you see some of my podcasts, I have talked about engineers should have product sense. So I always used to have this product sense from the very starting. Nobody told me that you should have that. That was something naturally I had inclination towards business and business matrices. Naturally, I had inclination towards analytics and numbers. So even when I worked on like telecommunication software or operation support systems or business support systems, I was always focused on analytics, data, even though I did not build data products initially in my career, but later on it was very seamless for me to pick up those skills as well. So that is something I think is even more relevant in this day and age. And I'll encourage all of you to start thinking about becoming a polyglot, multidimensional, and being able to pick up multiple skills, so that whenever an opportunity presents itself in your companies, you are able to jump onto that essentially. That is all from my side today. I hope you're enjoying your day, and we'll definitely meet up in next session. If you have any comments or suggestion, please write to me. I'll be more than happy to respond back. If there are any topics you want me to cover, I'll be happy to cover that. Till then, take care. Have a nice day. Do like, share, and subscribe.